And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the finale here. Welcome back to something special, to the end of the EPT for this year. The ESL Pro Tour has been running the entire year, and now here comes the end of the season. Here comes the Esports World Cup, the South Korean qualifiers here, and we have our first series. We have our first match, and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Amphion, we have our South Korean Zerg player, the Blue Zerg, representing Team Falcons, his new team. It is Ryung. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Team Vitality. It is Ryung. Here we go. Exclamation mark B in the chat, of course. Have a look at the back of yourselves. It is quite stacked indeed. There are some people asking about certain players, you know, where's Rainer, where is Maru? Well, for some of the top players, as you can imagine, they have already been invited. They've already been seeded into the main event. This is for the players that unfortunately didn't quite make the cut. They didn't make it through some of the big major events or through the overall EPT rankings. Instead, we have these open qualifiers. Gonna have one for each region. Gonna have one for Korea, one for Europe, Americas, and Asia as well. And yeah, these are qualifiers for qualifiers, essentially. The way this works here, as we're entering the open qualifier portion, is a qualifier to the closed qualifier, and 2 players will make it into the main event. I believe the main event is going to be happening next month, so we still have plenty of time until the Esports World Cup is upon us. And who is going to be a part of that? Who will be a part of the World Finals? We're here to find out. We are here to find out here. Initially, we have our ZVT. Again, plenty of other matches going on, plenty of coverage as well. We have ourselves, we have Rotterdam, we have Wardy, we have Pig, we have Behemoth, we have Steadfast, we have plenty of English casters all spread out throughout the bracket, and I imagine all the matches are being covered as we speak. For now, we have our own match. I believe the winner of this series goes up against Shin in the next round. As a heads up, as Rogue did go for a pull first. Was a pull first opener here out of Rogue. Was pull first into the natural base. It's a gasless opener, actually. Okay, interesting choice here from Rogue. Opening up a little bit greedy in a sense, basically without any gas, no link speed, no banelings, no roaches, no early game tech aggression by any means. We're just going to be droning as hard as possible. We did go pull first, so our initial links were spotted by the SCV. That means Ryung is going to be a little bit more tentative to move out across the map. I say that the Reaper, yeah, is looking for the links, is going to be sticking to Ryung's half, and that is going to give Rogue the breathing room he needs to make queens and to drone up. So Rogue, he's going to be left alone back at home. He's going to get away with cutting those corners and cutting those gases, droning up as hard as possible. Meanwhile, Ryung is stuck at home, trying to piece together what's going on. You can see here he's still looking for those links, still being as active as possible. No link kills yet, and will stay at home. The reason why is because we saw the links earlier with the SCV scout, so Ryung is a little bit concerned and paranoid that if he moves out, links will move in and the CC would be delayed. So he's stuck at home here till he can expand, till he can take his base, and once that gets up and running, well, now we can move out a little bit more freely. Behind this is going to be a 1-1-1, 1-1-1 variation, as there we go, third TC has been thrown down on the high ground, so it's going to be a 3CC 1-1-1 out of Ryung, very economic. And likewise, Rogue gets away with his greed, gets away with cutting corners and cutting those gases. Now, this usually means that Rogue is going to be entering a more Roach Ravager-centric composition. Again, without any gases, because link speed is so delayed, we usually don't really invest into link speed until later on down the line. It means Roaches will most likely be the option of choice here for Rogue. Eventually, once we get there, once we saturate our 3 bases and take our gases, and that can eventually lead into Link Bane Roach Ravager or just straight up Roach Ravager into Hive Tech into Lurkers. Well, the Hellions that have arrived, they do manage to bring down one of the tumors. Well, the tumors will fall. Behind this, interesting. So it's going to be a 3CC 2-1-1. That is a second Rax on the way, not a starport out of Ryung, so he's going to be going much more bio heavy with this, amassing Marines across the map, working towards a stim timing instead. So something much more aggressive here by Ryung. In a sense, aggressive. There's a bit of a give and take. Essentially, with this build choice by Ryung, very minimal Hellions. Very few Hellions here to work with. Very little map control as well. You can see that Ryung, he's poking, he's prodding, but he has no dive potential. He has no way to punish this opener. He has no way to punish the lack of link speed and get into a mineral line. Ryung is stuck outside, at least until he hits his medevac time. Again, it's going to be 16 Marines, 2 medevacs, and a jump across the map, and that will have a lot of damage, a lot of potential for damage. Is going to have a lot of potential here. And we'll see how this all comes together. For now, we're still just waiting for a stim. There's Yad on top, Medivacs are on the way. Very crisp timing here out of Ryung. Meanwhile, we spoke about roaches earlier out of Rogue. There it is, there's that roach warren. Again, like to go gasless like this, it is very common to skip banelings and to skip lings early on and to rely on roaches instead. So Rogue just playing this out as standard. I mean, I say playing it out as standard. The build itself was a little bit greedy and unorthodox. Now we get our Evo chambers on the way, but I'm curious about how much we'll have to defend against the initial timing, as Rogue hasn't seen much. You can see here that Rogue hasn't seen much at all. He should have taken note of the lack of Hellions and how low the Hellion count was, and that is a tell. But for what Rogue knows, we could just be banking up the Hellions back at home and going for like a surprise push, a surprise Hellbat push. But there we go, the drop is revealed. Rogue is aware. And Rogue is getting ready. You can see him rotating his queens over towards the left-hand side. Roach production has begun. We only need enough roaches to deflect the drop and to keep up with the movement here of the Medivacs. From there, then we can drone and still be greedy. We've already fully saturated 3 bases, 4th base is on the way. Rogue cutting a lot of corners. Already on 3-base saturation. Ryung still not finding much damage. We got an Overlord and we denied some creep tumors, true, but we're hoping for even more damage. Behind this, we have our 3rd CC landing on location, building up towards our 5-rack setup and tank production. So Ryung likewise is kind of building up towards that mid-game timing, towards that 7-minute push. I'm curious if he's going to be committing with his 1-1 tank move outs, as 1-1 upgrades are on the horizon, or if he does try to lay back a little bit and just focus on drop plays. It does catch a queen. Not bad. 1 queen goes down. Roaches have been revealed. Ooh, and Rogue, he is not droning up his 4th base. The 4th is about to finish, but do you see what I see? That is a Nidus Worm on the way. The Nidus Worm has not been scattered. Rogue, he's just going to double down with Roach Queen. Uh-oh. Okay, so Rogue was hyper greedy initially, getting up to 3-base saturation, but now he's cutting worker production, he's cutting his economy, focusing on nothing but roaches, and he's going to be moving out across the map. Ryung back at home, again, he just doesn't know, he hasn't seen this. He's in the dark. Is in the dark. We have 50 more roaches on the way. 1-1 is about to finish up here for Rogue. And Ryung is being active, sure, I mean, he's poking, prodding the edges of the map, that's true, but again, he still hasn't seen the Nidus Worm itself, he hasn't seen the lack of saturation at the 4th base. There are a couple of different tells and different signs that would alert you that there was going to be something more aggressive coming our way, but again, Ryung just hasn't seen that, not yet. Ryung is getting a 4th CC is on the way, and here we go, here comes the move out. Even without the Nidus Worm, we're just walking across the map. Meanwhile, Nidus into the main, barely out of vision. Ay. Ryung, he sees nothing. He sees nothing, he knows nothing. Here comes the army, and Ryung is woefully unprepared. He does have 3 tanks back at home, thankfully. Does have them pre-sieged. But the Nidus will finish. Yeah, the Roach Ravager pushes on forward. We do run into the wall of tanks, and it looks like Ryung is going to be able to hold the line, at least initially. Ooh. Even a pretty friendly fire. At the same time, the Queens of Roaches, they get into the main. Now, thankfully, there's not actually much production in the main base, so the main, it isn't as valuable as it otherwise would be. And Ryung, these 3 tanks, they did so much for him. He held on to the 3rd base. Another Nidus on the way. That's going to be a kill on the CC. Ryung knocked down to a 2-base economy. Nidus Worm is done. We can rotate further into the main or rotate towards the right-hand side. Ooh, +2 is denied as well. Boys are being pulled at the same time. We're going for that tank. Can we bile it down? It's going to be close. We go for the Medivacs. It looks like the 1st tank is going to fall. But we bleed out a lot of roaches. At the same time in the main base, we're still wreaking havoc. We get 16 SCV kills. And they're going for the tank. No Ravagers, though. Yeah, without Ravagers, we cannot break that tank line. Wings are starting to fall. But Rogue, he rotates back into the main. Honestly, I'm really impressed with how well Ryung has been defending. Like, he was ready at the 3rd, and he's holding onto the natural, but there's only so much he can do. Like, despite being caught off guard, Ryung will force back the army, but he lost 18 SCVs. He lost +2 armor, now losing +2 attack. Yeah, both E-bays are going to be knocked down. Can we get the armory? Uh-oh. It's going to be close. it's going to be close, Pappy. And behind this, we are still just investing in more roaches. Nidus Storm does go down. And vehicle weapons will finish. We do get a kill on the racks. Across the map, we have still not been droning. Rogue is transferring workers. He's not making workers. He's still on 6-6 workers. Still on 6-6 drones. And the Bio Army stepping on forward, collapsing on the Ravagers. Tank goes down. This is a brutal trade for Rogue. He bleeds out a lot of his army. the same time, we do hit the third. And Ryung, he's getting pulled apart. He's being spread so thin. He can't defend both bases at once. Third base is lifted. We knock down the depots. Ryung attempting to take a fourth, unable to. And even though Rogue didn't kill Ryung, which again, I mentioned before, I'm impressed. I'm definitely impressed here by Ryung's defense. Despite knowing so little coming into this, he held quite well. At the same time, he's not really living here. He survives, but he's stuck on one base. He's on one base economy at this point. Barely an economy. And back at home, Rogue is still maxing out with Road Travager. He did make 2 drones. He somewhat saturated a little bit, made 2 extra workers, as he went up to 68 drones instead of 66. But outside of that, things are looking bleak here for Ryung. It's Duckling distance mining, more Nidus Swarms on the way. We do file another tank, and what do we have left? We have 2 tanks remaining. We have 34 Marines. We do have control of the main base, and we will retake the main at least. But we're still in 2 bases. Like, Rogue is being outscaled. Sorry, Ryung is being outscaled. Rogue can freely expand, can freely drone. If Rogue really wanted to, we can drone up, work towards a hive, work towards Hydras and Lurkers and Viper Tech. He doesn't need to, but he could. There's nothing pressuring Rogue is the problem. And Rogue can fight this head on, out of range of the tanks. He can deal with the Bio Army. 2-2 was remade here for Ryung. He's remaking them. Getting into those upgrades. But alas, won't be able to do much more. The Nidus Swarm is still up in the main. Rogue is going to be able to collapse on this, takes down another tank. And it looks like he should be able to break through the final defensive here of Ryung. GG gets called, and Rogue will take game number 1. Whew. GG. A solid game there from Rogue. Again, was able to keep his build hidden from his opponents, was quite greedy. Winding it back a little bit, as a reminder, Rogue did open up. He did open up gasless. He was gasless. He got away with the opener as well. He droned up very quickly, up to 66 workers, and because of Ryung's build, he couldn't quite punish Rogue. He couldn't really do much about Rogue's economy. He couldn't really poke in, and his vision was quite limited. Because of that, Ryung, he didn't realize, didn't notice that Rogue was not droning up his 4th, and that Rogue had thrown down a Nidus Swarm. The Rogue was going all in on 3 bases. It was essentially a 3-base all in out of Rogue, and Ryung was in the dark. He had no idea what was going on. Despite that, again, had an impressive hold at his 3rd, but the Nidus Swarm in the main base was completely unscattered, and yeah, it did catch him completely off guard. That was a very intentional location with the Nidus Swarm in the main as well. It was interesting. It was like the one hex where there was no vision in the main base. A very cheeky position for that Nidus Swarm, and alas, Ryung had no idea what was coming until it was too late, and by then, even though Ryung survived the initial attack, he had still been crippled and still could not maintain himself. But with that, we're getting into game number 2. As a reminder, this is a best of 3. We have potential to bounce back. We have potential for an ace match. I want to believe that we can go the distance. And here we go. We're getting into game 2, and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Alkyone, we have our South Korean Zerg player, the Blue Zerg. Representing Team Falcons, it is Rogue. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the South Korean Terran player, the Red Terran representing Team Vitality, it is Ryung. Here we go. And I'm sure Ryung, he just wants to get into the mid game. He just wants to get into his game, get into his build. Alas, he was shut down before he could really be active on the map. It was Rogue that was in the driver's seat of game 1, but now it's time for Rogue to be the more reactive player, as once again he's going gasless. Okay, wait, where are we headed? where are we going, Pappy? Where are we going? Back at home, Ryung is going for a 2x Reaper, a much more aggressive start to the game, and Rogue is moving out with what looks to be... Okay, never mind. I was going to say what looks to be a proxy hatchery, but the drone does pivot away. We do have a gas being taken, so it is going to be a hatch gas pool. Standard opener out of Rogue, but he does drone scout. Initially, he drone scouts, so this is a little bit inefficient out of Rogue, but he's looking for proxies. So Rogue looks like he's a little bit paranoid, a little bit terrified that after all-inning in game 1 that he would be up against Cheese. You often do not see drone scouts like this, so this is quite committed out of Rogue. Like, drone scouting for proxies is not really a thing you see too often at all, but interesting to see that Rogue does embrace that. Again, is a little bit paranoid and willing to put himself behind economically just to be safe. Shows how confident he is. It was a bit of a gamble. Likewise, of course, Rogue did recently come back to competitive play back in April, so it's been a couple of months. It's been quite an amount of time. Been a couple of months since his return from the military, and he's been doing quite well for himself. Has been improving quite quickly over these past couple of months. It's been a really impressive and interesting sight to behold throughout ESL Open Cups to see the rise of Rogue over the course of May and June, and now coming into July. As the first Reaper has arrived, we're going to be dancing with these Lings. We have additional Reapers behind this. Remember, it was 2x Reaper here out of Ryung. His goal here is to contain and to deny the third. His goal is to get some economic damage done, and there we go. We're going for the third base, and as we go for the third, a big shout out to Macrocosm in the chat for resubscribing for 6 months. Thank you so much for resubscribing. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you enjoyed the content. Hope you enjoyed the casting. Hope you enjoyed the StarCraft. Hope you have a great time. As, again, we're looking for a cancel. We're looking for a cancel on this third base. Lacy's opponent, the Queens, are waddling over, and it looks like with the help of these Lings, as the Lings are coming up behind this, we should be able to fend off these Reapers. Again, it took a little bit too long for the Reapers to get on top of the base. Or can we go for the Queens? We have to make a choice. We're going for the Queens. KDA charges are thrown down. Hatchery getting low. The first Queen as well. Nice control here out of Ryung. He does pull away his Reapers. Ooh, but bleeds off a Reaper. And Rogue holds. Rogue, he holds on. He saves the base. He saves the Queens. Link speed has kicked in. And Rogue, he's gotten away with this. Again, this opener of Ryung needed to get more damage done, and now he's in trouble. Is in trouble. Lings, they come in for the surround, and we get away? Oh, we barely do. Three Reapers do escape. 2 got shut down. Overall, though, I want to favor, as we bleed off another Reaper. This is a much better start for Rogue. Again, this opener from Ryung needed to get more damage done. We needed to ideally force a cancel, right? This hatchery is low. We were close. We were close to forcing a cancel. But close is not good enough. We do get a Queen. That's something. But Lings, they knock down the rocks. They collapse on the Reapers. And they clean everything up. And from here, Rogue can freely drone, saturate his bases. And Ryung back at home is working towards his 3CC, once again, 2-1-1. So it's going to be an economic follow-up here out of Ryung. Ryung is stuck at home until he gets his Medivacs up and running. Again, 0 Hellions to work with, at least currently. And that tells us that Rogue can be greedy. Rogue, he can cut as many corners as he wishes. He can just drone up, take gases, invest into upgrades. That is an earlier Baneling Nest, a very safe play here out of Rogue. We honestly, we typically would not see a Baneling Nest at this stage. We'd see Evo Chambers or a Lair. So a very safe play here out of Rogue. We'll keep us safe against a Hellbat push, for example. As Rogue is droning and taking a 4th. Just opening up that attack path to take the 4th base. Things are caught out. A nice little trade here for Ryung. Lair is on the way. And momentarily, once the Lair is around halfway done, we should be seeing Evo Chambers here to work towards a +1. Work towards those +1 upgrades. And right now, the pressure is on Ryung. There's a lot of pressure here on our Red Terran player. Double drop coming in. There's those 2 Evo Chambers. We do catch out more Lings. Again, not bad. It's been how many Lings so far? 9. 9 Lings and 1 Queen. It helps. And we do clean up quite an amount of active tumors. 6 tumors go down. Ryung rotating over. Upgrades have begun. Ryung just being as active as possible. We'll supply block Rogue. Again, not a bad pickoff. Let's get Rogue supply blocked, establishing his 3rd. And Ryung is building up towards his eventual 7-minute push. You know, he's working, he's building up towards 1-1 upgrades, 3 tanks, 4 tanks even. And will eventually be more active. Meanwhile, with this rotation, Ryung, he does come across a hatchery, and he will force a cancel. He forces 1 cancel, but Rogue was double expanding. He already has a 4th about to finish up. His 5th is denied, but didn't quite need it, not yet. So not the most important cancel. I mean, nice damage still out of Ryung. Let's get some nice damage. Infestation bits on the way, quite greedy here out of Rogue. With this, we can rush into a hive, or even infestors. We have options. This drop is still being active. It's still being active here as here we go. The tanks do move out. Have reached that 7-minute timing. Army is sleeping on forward. And Rogue is getting ready for a surround. Bailing speed is now done. Not a bad angle here out of Ryung. Again, he's hitting his timing with 1-1. 2 tanks. He's going for the queens at the same time. Rogue, he's just holding on. Holding on to his Ling Bane, and now we collapse in. Yeah, we collapse on the tanks. Bailing's J rolled on forward as well. No big connections, but we clean up the tanks. The tanks are cleaned up, and so is the bio. But how many queens? We got every single queen. Not bad. And the Marines, they survived. Ryung, he can keep pushing. He can keep the pressure up, and now Rogue is in trouble. He lost all the queens. 7 queens went down. The split is good enough. Oh my god. The splits. Ryung pushing forward towards the 4th. Rogue trying to hold on. 20 Lings in production. Again, the surround wasn't bad earlier, but alas, the bio did survive. Does force a pickup. Behind this, Ryung taking another base. He is not rallying across the map. He doesn't reinforce. Rogue holds. Rogue holds on, and now what is scary about this hold is that, yes, Rogue, he lost 7 queens. He lost a lot of his Ling Bane, but he didn't lose his economy. His bases, his drones, like, they've all been untouched, and that means we get away with the Hive. Hive is done. We have Adrenal. We're working towards 3-3. I mean, 2-2 for now, but eventually 3-3. Ultra Caverns on the way. We can invest into Spellcasters, Vipers, like Rogue. He's still looking quite free across the map, and he has been mass expanding. He's on 6 bases. He's on 6 bases already. The creep is a little bit lacking. You know, that's something that Ryung was able to keep in check. That is true. The creep is really just connecting the bases, but outside of that, like Rogue, he's looking quite comfortable. He is looking quite comfortable. Ling countersack gets caught. Likewise, so does Ling right on the right-hand side. Ryung still being active and still once again getting on top of that creep. Going for the mineral line. Bold move out of Ryung. We do have Borrow. Going for the scan. We do target fire as many as we can though. Slick moves here out of Ryung. 7 drones go down. Most of them were target fired. Behind this, Ryung, he's building up towards 2-2. 2-2 about to finish up. We can try to move out with 2-2 or just max out instead. Ryung, he's not afraid to really go for a longer game, to wall up, to get into a 5th CC and max out. And that might be a wiser choice, especially considering that Ultras are on the way. Bailing's going forward, but Ryung does split in time, does pull away. And this is what I was referring to, the Ghost Academy, right? We have Ultras already in the mix. We will need Ghosts, Liberators. We'll need that anti-Hive army, and we're getting there. For now, Rogue, he's maxing out, again with Ling Bane Ultra. Kind of splitting, finishing up. 2-2 is done, 3-3 should be on the horizon here for Rogue. Until then, the Ultras are revealed. Ryung now knows. Ryung is aware. He's pulling back. 3 more CCs on the way, getting the Viking production. Vikings will help zone away things like Vipers. We don't want to invest too heavily into that, as we know, as we can see, there are no Vipers yet for Rogue. Instead, going for Dropper Lords. Okay. Bold move. 6 Dropper Lords on the way. That's a lot of Dropper Lords. There's a lot of drop potential. So you see Rogue splitting up his forces, just defending his bases, taking the gold, investing into a Spire. This should be for Corruptors, for eventually Broodlords if need be. Ryung, he's just completely walling up at this point, killing his own Marines, making free supply here for Ghosts. And we have so many command centers on the way. Some of them will be orbitals, others will be planetaries. Just completely turtling up with a line of tanks, turrets, and CCs. As I mentioned before, Ryung, he is not afraid to go for a longer game. We're going to be strapping in for a while here. And we can take things slow, take our time. Like, the thing here is that Rogue wants to fight out on the map. He wants to fight on creep. He wants to have that beautiful surround that engage with his melee army, this ground army. And Ryung just doesn't give it to him. We have more CCs on the way. We just completely wall up on our 5-base setup. But here comes the Ling Bane, and the wall is not completely sealed tight. Big tank bullies go. We annihilate the Ling Bane and the Ultra. What did we really get here? We got, I think, one tank, some bio, not much else. Ryung trading well. Meanwhile, the drop lords, they go for the main, but they do get caught out. Yeah, we're in position. The drop lords will unload, though. They barely do unload. Ultra goes down. Nidus Worm into the main. And this is forcing a big reaction here out of Ryung. The Nidus Worm, it will finish. And this is a bit of a Hail Mary play here out of Rogue, but it looks like it's going to be working. As I say that, tanks are in position, and Rogue, he does bust in. He gets 2, he gets 3 tanks. So Ryung, he was ready for this, he was in position. He shuts down the push. Likewise in the main, he did miss some of these lings, which means we can go for another Nidus. But for the most part, the army was dealt with, and Ryung holds. Once again, impressive defense here out of Ryung. Does trade well. Rogue still remaxing with Ultra, still no Vipers. We have +1 air attack on the way, or flyer attack. Lings did on Burrow. Will distract Ryung. Shuts down the Nidus. At the same time, Ling Bane hits the 3rd base. Does hit on the left-hand side. Going for the planetary. This time we do break in. Ryung out of position. Oh, the entire mineral line is going to be going down. That's 22 SCVs. Ay, ay, ay. 26 SCVs even. We do hold. We do clean up the army. But the base did go down. And now there's no planetary. And that's what's terrifying. Meanwhile, Ultra's into the main. The ghosts! Yeah, Ryung not paying attention. We catch out 4 ghosts. Expensive losses here for the Terran. And Rogue, he's finally doing it. He's finally breaking Ryung. We knocked out a planetary. We bust into the main. Ultra still wreaking havoc. At the same time, Rogue, he hits the 4th. Or the 5th even. Does hit the 5th base. Getting more tanks. Getting to the mineral line as well. And Ryung, he's getting pulled apart. Up until this point, he was holding quite well. It was impressive. Like, the initial drop into the main and the initial aggression fell on its face. But eventually the Nidus were finished up. Ultra's got into the main. Like, things very quickly escalated out of control in favor of Rogue. And the problem now is that Ryung has to recover. Ryung, he has a ways to go to max out and to get a handle on his economy. I spoke earlier, there's no planetary here at the 4th. So yeah, Lings on their own, they can just trickle in. They can threaten this command center. And Ryung is just stuck at home. Now Ryung, he's almost remaxed. He's at 170 supply. But alas, he's getting pulled apart. And we go from one end to the other. We're going for the planetary. The bio army zoned away. That's a kill on the base. 13, 14, 15 SCVs going down. We do overextend. Oof. That's a lot of Ultras going down, but now we got plenty more where that came from. Rogue, he just keeps on pushing, chasing the army back. Knocking down the 4th, going for the 3rd. GG gets caught as we overwhelm the Terran, and Rogue will take the series 2-0. GG. GG, well played. I apologize for not having the score updated on the screen, but that was game 2. We did cast game 1, but I was just a little bit, you know, engrossed engrossed in the game itself. But GG, well played. Rogue will take it 2-0, and he will not knock Ryung out of the qualifier. as a reminder as well, in case you were curious, there's only one. There's only one qualifier for the Korean region, and it is single elimination. One and done here for our players, so with this loss, Ryung is going to be knocked out, and Rogue is going to advance on into the next round. Into that next round, we'll also realize that out of game, the logos are incorrect. We'll fix that up. There you go. But Rogue will take the series 2-0, advancing on into the next round, where he has an opponent ready and waiting. Up next is going to be Rogue versus Shin in a ZVD.